This is Phil, the Balrog, and today I welcome you to this new episode of Let's Talk Around the Fire. But before we begin, I want to warn everybody. This episode is on the rules that weren't fact. That means that we will tell you how we decide to apply those rules and what is our reasoning behind it. But it is not official. Please don't shoot us, stab us, or throw shit at us. It is just the way we play the game here in Montreal. Now, these are the 5 rules that we are gonna talk today, and we'll end on some advice for when you go in tournament and you have a question on a controversial rule and how to deal with it. Now, let's welcome our rule specialist, Alex, the Thousand Lord Commander. Hi, Alex, how you doing?
Hi everybody, I'm doing great.
Alex is here today because he have an incredible memory and he is our local judge. When we have a question for him, he always have the answer.
I also read all the facts and everything on the forum, on the song forum.
Yeah, and what is beautiful is always have the answer right away. Now, let's jump for the first rule that we wanted to talk to the last.
Now stand aside, worthy adversary.
'Tis but a scratch.
A scratch? Your arm's off.
No, it isn't.
Well, what's that then?
I've heard worse.
Okay, to the last rule is very simple. You have 2 tokens on the unit that have to the last, and each time this unit will be destroyed, you can remove 1 token, and they made a moral test. On a success, the unit's gonna live. On a fail, the unit is still destroyed. Now, the controversial part gonna be explained by Alex.
So this is one of the rules that's been changed in the last edition, the 2022 edition. Some are arguing that if you use to the last, you make your moral test and you fail. So when the first time you failed, first time you use the ability and you fail the test, you could spend the second token right away. Since you are gonna be destroyed, you could spend the second token right away to roll a second time your moral test and possibly save your unit.
Yeah, but our ruling is that is not the way that the rules was intended to be played. Why? Because if they wanted us to reroll after a fail roll, they will have put a rule like the old Varys that simply said that if you fail your roll, you can roll again and take another token off him. We are considering the timing, conflict order, and tactic cards rules that also said that you have a trigger. Your unit don't die again. And that's the reason why we think that to the last is only 1 use, and if you fail it, you die, you cannot roll again.
So we looked at the old Varys card from the first edition, and it had a very specific line of text at the end. This may be repeated if unsuccessful. This gives us the intent that if they wanted to the last to be repeated, if it was unsuccessful the first time, it would have been written the same way.
Exactly. Now for the second rule. Sam and Gilly NCU. Alex, what is the problem with this rule?
Well, Gilly was implemented in 1.7 edition, and it's really simple. She may only be activated once per game. However, there's a general rule that each and any unit must activate each round. Last edition 1.7, it has been the question has been asked on the forum, and the designer of the game stated very clearly that there was a missing line of text on the card, which would be eventually erased. However, there are 2 main issues with that answer from the designer. First, we don't know what was the missing line of text. Some people tried and asked the designer, but the only answer we got is something like,
Where'd you get that?
A good question. For another time.
and the second issue is that it was on 1.7 edition, and this edition were at the 2022 edition. So it was last edition. So they had the opportunity to do an errata and modify the card, which has not been done.
Yes, but in the answer, Michael Chanel still said that you're not forced to. The way I read it, you're not forced to activate Earth the first round, and it will have been stupid and not worth the point. Then our ruling is very simple. You can activate Gilly the round that you want. Alright, the third rule is what is dead may never die. The card read like this. That unit is not destroyed, but instead remain in play with D3 wound. Attach this card to the unit until the end of the game. While attached when that unit performs an action, before resolving the attack, it suffers D3 wound unless you control the sword.
However, the important issue is the trigger.
When a friendly unit is destroyed. Now, Lex, what is the problem with this rule?
Well, most of the abilities and tactic cards of which have the same intent have a different trigger. It's not when a friendly unit is destroyed, but it's when a friendly unit would be destroyed. When a friendly unit is destroyed, if this is the trigger that's chosen by the designer, it can come into conflict with other tactic cards like Take the Black. Take the Black, it is also played when an enemy unit is destroyed, which means that if we only look at the trigger and a Night's Watch player is the active player, he could trigger Take the Black before the Greyjoy player triggers What is Dead May Never Die. However, this is also something that came into dispute in 1.7 edition, and there was an answer from the designers. The designer stated very clearly that the intent of the card was that the trigger should have been when a friendly unit would be destroyed. And they also stated that this would be part of an errata to change the trigger. However, this was the case last edition, but we are in edition 2022 and it's not being changed. So what is the intent? Is the intent that this won't be changed, or is it's only something that's being forgotten?
My opinion is they just have too many stuff to do. They have to do a huge new edition and balance everything, and I think they just tell we're gonna address these problems later on the next FAQ. Alright, quickfire rules read like this. After this unit complete a maneuver or retreat action, this unit perform one range attack action. What's the problem with this rule, Alex?
Well, the main culprit here is the Ranger Hunters from the Night's Watch faction, because when they retreat, they can trigger their quickfire ability and shoot. However, the main rules state that when somebody retreats, the unit that's left behind can also pivot after the retreat is completed. Which means if we go by the main rule of simultaneous actions, the active player should choose what occurs first, quickfire or the pivot. This can make a big difference, because it can sometimes be the difference between being shot in the front or being shot in the flank. However, there was an old FAQ, but it dates from 2 editions version 1.6, which clearly stated that the pivot came before quickfire. However, this has been deleted on the main FAQ. So since the last 2 editions, 1.7 and 2022 versions, it's gone. Which means nobody can refer to this FAQ. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and that's a huge problem. I still don't understand, because you cannot forget to copy paste a rule in the new FAQ. On this one, we decide to apply the rule with the simultaneous action rule. That means that the Ranger Hunter gonna shoot before the defender pivot. But I'm really on the edge on this one. Alex convinced me to rule it that way just because it makes no sense that new player don't have access to this fact. This fact actually disappeared, and special thanks to Jordan Leold to send me the old 1.6 facts, because without him we will not have been able to show you the fact. And that's the reason why we roll it like this, because any judge, any marshal, any event with the rules that are at his disposition cannot rule it other way.
So it's only it comes down to simultaneous action, and this old fact does not exist anymore in any form.
But I dislike it because thematically I think it makes no sense. And why do you create Ardennet Ranger? The Ardennet Ranger say that the other unit cannot pivot. I always thinking that this guy was created to give you this advantage with the other couple of shit he bring. But you know, we still have no other choice to rule it like this for the moment. But we will understand anybody that will it otherwise. Now, for the last rule, Sentinel rule. The Sentinel rule read like this. After another friendly unit in long range is attacked, this unit perform one charge or maneuver action. If charging, it must target the attacker. Alex, what's the problem with this one?
So the issue comes from what happens if the defender was originally destroyed by the attack. Some players argue that since the defender was destroyed, there is no another friendly unit in long range because he's dead. The unit is dead, so the trigger cannot happen since there is not another friendly unit in long range that is attacked. And this is a really strong argument in favor of Sentinel, the order Sentinel not being applicable if the friendly unit was destroyed. However, we know that between, I think, edition 1.6 and 1.7, the designer clearly changed the timing of the Surge Forth in order to have Surge Forth happen at the end, because this was an issue with Baratheons, the Baratheon faction a while back, because when one unit was destroyed, the opponent could simply Surge Forth out of line of sight and prevent the use of the Sentinel. I think it was a tactic card back then.
And that's the reason why we think that they just forget about this rule and the wording of Sentinel, and Sentinel should apply if the unit is destroyed. Like I said, thematically it makes no sense that if the unit is destroyed, your unit cannot use its Sentinel rule, and I'm pretty sure it's just something the designer have forget. Now, for the conclusion, I need to say a big thank you to Alex, because without him, I will not have been able to do this episode and have all those explanations.
Well, thank you.
Now, all those rules, okay? That is our decision to apply them like this. And if people ask us, we always answer before the tournament. That means that if you have a rule that you know that it's controversial in your play group and you go in an event, be sure to ask the marshal before the event, because if you know that the rules gonna be played away, then you can be careful and play with the knowledge that the rule is not gonna be played the way that you were used to, and don't do mistake, and you don't gonna argue while you are playing, gonna save time, and it's just gonna be more enjoyable for you. And if you're not agreeing with the ruling, you just can say, okay, I'm not going to the tournament. That is our main advice for every competitive player when you face those shady rules. Now, I want to thank everybody for this episode. Alex, one last word?
Well, there are a lot of more interactions that can be complicated in this game. I always have a look on the forum. For a while, I think it was last fall, from September to November, the designers were really active on the forum. I think they've taken a break, maybe a long break, but it's always good to look on the forum and the FAQs before going to a tournament to avoid any unpleasant surprises. If you make a move during a tournament and you don't have all the rules fully covered, you can even lose a game if you have the wrong rules interaction.
And that's it. And good night, everybody. And we'll see you in our next episode.
Goodbye.